It's my great pleasure to welcome Charlie Heather from The Levelers with me this afternoon here on Product of the Working Class. Afternoon, Charlie. How are you doing, fella?
Very well, thank you. Very well. Yes, just having a break from doing a lot of labouring work in my back garden. Just had a massive delivery of cobblestones, 3 tons of the stuff, and I find myself on my own unloading it all. So yeah, I'm having a welcome break, and you reminded me what it is I do. So that's really good.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad I'm reminding you of what you do, and what you do is
Yeah.
do a damn awesome job of holding those noisy buggers that play in the band with you together. That's what I think you do, anyway. And you do a damn good job of it as well. So, hats
Thank
off
you.
from me, fella, without doubt, without doubt. Um, so let's kind of talk about drumming. That's why we're here this afternoon.
Oh,
Where did it all start, Charlie? What was that? Was there a moment for you when you were like,
yeah,
that's what
it
I've got
was.
to do?
I used to, when I was about 15, 16, I was hanging out in a youth club. And there were some guys in the sort of garage of this youth club making making a lot of racket, and found out there was kind of like a local punk band, and then this guy was saying, "Oh, they're looking for a drummer," and I thought, well, I don't know any drummers, you know. And the next thing I knew was, "Oh, well, have a go, mate. Go on, have a go." So I had a go, and sort of went, "Yeah, I've got something together." I've obviously seen other drummers do it. I've never ever had a go on a drum kit before. And after about half an hour of this, I was really enjoying it. It was good fun. It was punk music, so punk rock. It really didn't matter.
Hmm.
And we got to the end of it, and I said, "Great, yeah, we've got a gig in 2 weeks." What?
Oh.
What? And they said, yeah, well, yeah, you'll be all right. I mean, it's punk rock, isn't it? Okay. So I did it, and I have to say, after doing that gig, I absolutely was petrified. I remember thinking, I was on this bus going, why did I agree to this? This is not something I would ever want to do, really. But I did the gig, and it was someone from Splogenessabound was at the gig. Funny enough, the lead singer of Splogenessabound was a local
Yeah.
hero, I guess, at the time. Oh no, Case, that was it. He was a singer of Case, who, if you ever came from sort of Bromley, Croydon area in the sort of late 70s, early 80s, you would know who they are. And
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
guy was in the audience. I'm like, oh my God, But yeah, I did the gig, I mean, maybe about half hour long. And that was it. I was hooked. I loved it. I mean, you know what it's like when you get
Yeah,
quite
man.
nervous going to do the show. You think, oh God, oh God. And of course, you do the show and you get to the end of it, you think, oh, that was brilliant. The feeling of relief and
It's
everything.
it's such a buzz, isn't it?
It
There's no,
is. Mm.
it's such a buzz, I've had this conversation with a few people over the last few months whilst doing these podcasts, and unless you are a musician yourself, there is not you can't describe it to anybody really. And
Mm.
it was when I was talking to Phil Martini, who he plays with a band called Wayward Sons, and he's played with Joe Elliott from Def Leppard in his Down and Outs project, and he does some stuff
Uh-huh.
with Spear of Destiny as well. And he was just
All right.
saying, and we were just saying, how do you describe that? And I suppose the only way I can describe it is it's like the Force, and I'm not trying to get all Jedi on you,
Mm.
but it's that connection that happens, and it's very organic, and it just feels. It's just amazing, and it just
Mm.
flows through, and it's that connection between you and the drums and and everything all coming together in one whole thing.
Mm.
It's just incredible.
Well, for me, actually, what you're describing there is when the band is absolutely grooving, which tends to happen on like day 3 on a tour, when everyone's doing their part and they're doing it well, and you just, it's like that swan feeling. You're very smooth on the top, at the bottom it's kind of like flapping away, but you're absolutely in control. And I call it being in the zone.
Mm.
That's what I keep chasing, being in that zone. And it's not just me, it's the band. There's no point in me being in the zone on my
No.
own, because what's the point?
Yeah.
It's like, it's like being a brilliant striker, in the world's worst football team. There's no point. And that is something I chase. And it might only be for one song, or never for the whole set. Sometimes close. You get really good gigs, but to be in the zone is something that it's just magical, and it is something I really miss.
It is. It's incredible. It's such a feeling. Such a feeling. Yeah, no, it's amazing. It is amazing. When I've played, when my first band, Insanity Beach, when we were together back in the early '90s, we were doing this gig at like a working man's club sort of thing. We've not really been bullied into it, but we've been asked to do it on so many occasions, and there's only so many times you could say no. So we're doing it, and we were really nervous, really nervous. But my word, it was great when it was done, and the acclaim that came from it afterwards, just from the people that were there, was just amazing. It really was something. It's just brilliant. So I can wholeheartedly relate to what you're saying. It's just it's awesome. It is awesome. It's so cool.
Yep.
So kind of after the whole punk band thing, how did it develop from there then, Charlie? What were the next steps for you?
Well, I did a lot of pubs, in and out of various bands. I mean, the first band was obviously my first set of mates, and it was very special. But when that kind of fell through, I still had that urge, and I guess I got kind of headhunted in a way. I mean, I'm talking, just the local area. The sort of people get to hear who's what and who's good at doing that. And I ended up. I had a band at one point that was based in Brixton. That was really good fun. Really good fun. It was kind of gothy, punky band. Southern death cult kind of vibe. That was good fun, and then kind of fell apart from. It's always very hard with bands, especially back in the day. It's getting the balance right, and so I've done a lot of pubs, which I enjoyed all of that, but it wasn't until I moved down to Brighton by chance, and I met with Jeremy, who then met with Mark in the band of the Levelers, and that's when when things are going to happen, when the balance is right and the same amount of enthusiasm is there, because it's very, very hard to get a band together. You might have the singer's really devoted, the drummer and the bass player really there, and the guitarist would be equally brilliant, but he's got a job. Right, so it kind of, and he's got a career, or he's going to go to university, and it's very, very hard to get that group of people together. I think that looking back now, I would say there's a lot of luck involved, but we met each other, and don't know how you these days get a band together. I can see now it's very, very, very difficult. It's kind of easier now, I guess, to have your own studio, do your own stuff, in a bedroom. And, like Celeste, for example, she's done a brilliant. She's quite local to us, and it's afterwards you put the band together. Do you see what I mean?
Of course.
The way we did it. So so from youth club to pubs to I don't know where I ended up. Glastonbury main stage, I guess.
We are so gonna talk about that, because we so got to talk about that. We have to. But I think you're right. That whole grassroots thing is really important. But I think building something up from the beginning and being part of it from how it's starting to be cultivated by the members that are involved. It's just I think it's a privilege if that happens, because it's such a magical thing. And when you're, whatever it is you're producing then gets the reaction that you hope it's going to get from the audience, there's nothing quite like that either. There's it makes you feel that everything you're doing is worthwhile.
Definitely. And I think with Jeremy, particularly the bass player, he really sort of wears his love on his sleeve, his heart on his sleeve, and he's very sort of open person, and you get that when he goes on stage. And I remember looking at him thinking, oh, he's really giving it some. I mean, his playing was bloody awful, but he meant what he was trying to do on the stage. My job was trying to go, right, when you jump up and down, just do it in time,
And he always jumps up, and he has always jumped up and down.
I know. I've had to tell him. Like, just do it in time. Don't just do it randomly.
Yeah, listen to my bass drum, please.
Yeah, yes, please. But his level of enthusiasm was mind blowing and infectious as well. And then what comes off the stage, really, as we were saying, it was picked up by the audience, and it was kind of for us. Right from my very first gig. I mean, me and Jeremy were in a band before. We had a bit of a local following, but nothing big.
Yeah.
And it's kind of picks up bit by bit. It's hard to sort of put a finger on it, but I reckon right from the start for us, and knowing when that was happening, that I remember kicking myself, going, right, enjoy this, just enjoy this. This might not last. So 32 years later, I'm still enjoying it.
Yeah, I know. And it's hard to believe that it's been that amount of time. I mean, for me, the first time I saw the Levellers was at Surfers Against Sewage Winter Ball in *94. So it was just before Zeitgeist came out. And,
right.
Oh my God. And I'd been listening to the self-titled album with Belarus and everything because it just never used to leave the car. It was just... everything about I just love that album, and it's still a go-to album for me.
Okay.
I love it. Like Warning, 100 Years of Solitude. I just adore that album. It's just amazing. But what I couldn't get over, because I was really pumped about going to see you guys, and we were really lucky to get tickets, my mate and I. And
it wasn't a big gig. It
wasn't, and that's why we were really lucky we got tickets. And I just remember being absolutely blown away. And going, wow, I've been part of something special here tonight. And my mate Greenie, who was with me, it's just we often have little conversations like just through text, going, wow, it's so good to be part of that, and really genuinely felt that we were at one with you. It was awesome. It really was something special. It really was.
I think, going back to what you were saying about that organic thing, I mean, that was our secret weapon. If there was a secret about it, I never really sort of tried to analyze it too much. But that really is what it's about, really, for me.
I think there's always been a connection with the band and the audience.
Yes.
Right. Every time, I mean, I've seen you lots of times. I can't go. I haven't got enough hands. And. Every time, it's never failed to deliver, in my opinion. It's always been, like, right up there. Everyone's been such a, like, just gelled. It's just something, yeah. My wife and I, actually, one of our first dates was I took her to go and see you guys playing on the Mouth to Mouth tour, in Exeter. And, and it's funny, isn't it, what you remember? And, but it's all of that, it's just, and so that for me, the band, yourself, have played a really big part in my growing up, and I'm getting towards being an old man now, but with
not as old as me.
Not as old as you, not quite, but I'm knocking on the door, Charlie, and but my kids love it. This is the thing, they love the band as well, and I think they've become, and it's awesome, and I think that's what's great about Levellers generally. I know we're kind of coming off subject about drums, but because there's a younger audience that are into it as well, and I love that. I think that's just great. I think that's a sign of good success.
We
as well.
certainly love it too, because it means we get to see their pocket money.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're right. I think that kind of sums up our Beautiful Days festival. It's families or people of our age who've got kids. I mean, now our kids are all growing up or in their 20s, and it is interesting. I think we've never been a fashionable band. We've never been, a band that's gone out to be cool. We just wore our hearts on our sleeves, as I said before, and people connect to it. And it's not just exclusively to one generation, as you say. It's where kids grow up on it. I mean, I get people coming up to me in the streets going, I grew up on your music. Really? Your parents must have really liked us then. You said, yeah. Great.
It's just awesome. It is just awesome. I mean, my eldest daughter, Jenna, she'll kill me for saying this. So she was, the first time she saw you play, she was 4. and we saw you at the Witchwood Festival in Cheltenham Cheltenham Racecourse,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
she sat on my shoulders for the whole gig, and she was just mesmerised by the whole thing. And she was talking to me about it in the car this morning because she knew I was going to be having a chat with you this afternoon. And she goes, "Oh, you've got to tell him that I saw them when I was really small, and I still remember it." So I've embarrassed her successfully now by saying that. But it was just
But she doesn't break the record, I'm afraid. She doesn't break a record
okay.
because there's been plenty of pregnant women that have turned up to the
Fair enough.
So.
So good though. It's just so good. Yeah, no, it's brilliant. It is brilliant. So let's kind of dial. We'll dial back a little bit. So we've obviously when the levels all started off, Weapon Called the Word was great album.
Mm-hmm.
But it really, I suppose, kicked off for you guys with Leveling the Land. That was where everything just went kind of nuts, if you like.
Yes, it did. It did. I mean, I think for several reasons. With the first album, it was released by a very sort of small label called Music Disc. And when we put the album together, they gave us obviously in advance, so we were able to record the album. We went to Loco Studios in Wales.
Yeah.
Put it together. Big learning curve for us. It was only then we realised how much we did vary speed. And it was quite an issue. We'll start the song, it was starting on a sort of tempo, and then you get to the chorus and everyone's pushing. And of course, I just follow along, And you listen back, strip the music instruments away, it's just the drums. It's like, oh my God, I was really speeding up. So it's like, right, we need to resolve this because we can't, I mean, I like a bit of movement in a song, and it really works because we listen to a lot of music these days that just starts on one tempo and finishes at exactly the same tempo. Yeah. There's no movement of kind of pushing or pulling or anything like that. But what we were doing in that first album was ridiculous. So I think that's when the first time I got the metronome out, and it was like, I could play to the click. The rest of the band had an issue with that. And so then we started to strip it down and rebuild because we tried to do the whole thing live, you see, and it just didn't work. It sounded odd, but then we got there in the end. It took a while for me to listen to that album without being critical because, as I said, it was a big learning curve. But now I can listen to that with knowing the charm of what people see and what people hear. It's quite hard when you're involved deeply in an album to be kind of retrospective of it and have a clear view of what that album is. I'm just thinking, having memories of how I made.
No, but I think but it's the personality of the record. I think that's what it is. It is, and it does, and it lives and it breathes in its own right. And I think that you're right. It's part of its charm, but it's a great album. It is a great album, and there's
great songs, definitely.
I love it. I love it. I love World Freak Show and Three Friends. They're just classic songs. They're just brilliant. It's just I love it. It's fantastic stuff. So like I said, so Leveling the Land was massive, and it all kind of really just went in boof, didn't it?
Yeah.
And kicked off.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Then with Leveling the Land, we realised with Music Disc, we released the Weapon Called the Word, and we, organised the tour, and the album didn't come out until after the tour finished because they kept ballsing up the release date. So it just didn't work out, so we decided that we didn't want Music Disc anymore. So along came Derek Green of China Records. Derek Green had once famously signed the Sex Pistols to EMI for 2 weeks. and had a bit of an issue. But he was a lovely guy. I mean, he was a businessman, but he also knew about music, and he identified, he knew what we were about. He got it. I mean, the rest of his record company, the people who worked there, weren't necessarily on it, but he was very good. He was very blunt as well as a businessman, as you would expect. But with him and with China Records, a whole set of new songs. That's when Simon joined us as well, and a few of his songs came into the album. And like you say, it just suddenly took off. And I think we were unaware. We were just quite busily, happily getting on with this. I've got a few shows to do, do this, it wasn't. I don't know. I think it hit us in different times, but we didn't realise how big we were. That's why we were getting interviews or asked to be interviewed by NME or Melody Maker at the time.
Yeah,
they were
back then, yeah.
Source of that information of what's going on in the music scene.
It
And we
was.
go, why are they suddenly being interested in us? Because they saw what we didn't see at that time, that we were going to take off,
Yeah.
So yeah, it did happen kind of. Yeah, we were busy doing another shows, another tour, getting in the transit van. We were very hardworking, and I think we were so hardworking. We didn't look to see what was going on.
And I think that's one of the loves for me of the band is the fact, that work ethic that you guys have, because actually, and I think every other Levelers fan that's out there would agree with me that it's that there was always opportunity to see you guys playing, and I also like the fact that it wasn't just the regular standard venues either. You used to play venues that not every other band would play. So for me, I mean, for me, growing up in Cornwall, we didn't really get bands coming to Cornwall because it was too far for them to come down. So when
the old school was
right.
We supported New Model Army. That was the first time we played there. That was a bit of a sports hall, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. It's not there anymore, unfortunately. It's been knocked down.
No. They knocked it down just as well because it wasn't a great venue.
It wasn't a great venue. No, it was a bit of a toilet, but it was the only place that we had.
Yeah. We were very aware all over the country that there were some areas that just didn't have venues, and we still try to do it today. Where there's a venue that's been closed down and someone tries to open it up, we'll definitely always have a look because we have a great tour support. We have really good. Tour manager and our crew are brilliant. And we can literally say, well, okay, we'll organise the PA and we'll organise the lights, just give us the power and you sort out the doors, We've done a few experiments like that and it's been great. Can't remember any on the top of my head, but we certainly always have a go at that. And like you say, people really appreciate that and we know that.
Absolutely. And I think, like I said, one of the loves for the band is that whole thing, trying to reach out to everybody, and enjoy being a part of it all, and I think that's it's just fantastic for me.
So we're playing in Plymouth, by the way. I just remember.
Yeah, you did. I saw you in Plymouth as well. Yeah.
That's the furthest southwest we can get these days, I think.
Yeah, I don't think they do go any further than that. Really, it's just such a shame. Such a shame because they could do with a decent venue down there. I mean, I obviously live in just outside of Cirencester now, so I'm about 20 miles from Cheltenham. So. Yeah. So, which is where I saw you play at Cheltenham Town Hall a couple of years ago when you did the stripped back acoustic album.
Oh, yeah.
That was the last time I saw you play, and obviously that was not that long before we've had this horrendous pandemic on our hands,
and
that's obviously had its toll. And I would like to talk to you about that as well, actually, a bit later, because I know that's affected the 30-year anniversary tour for Level in the Land. That's how I want to talk to you about that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, the worst thing it affected the lockdown. We had a tour all lined up. And we decided to do a tour instead of going out 3 months at one go or anything like that. We started to do it break it down to sort of a week off or a week or 2 weeks, and sort of spread it out. And so we had it all nicely lined up, and then obviously we just got going. And this is promote our last album, the Peace album,
which is amazing.
Thank you. But we love that album. It's the most exciting album we feel we've done in at least a decade. And we can get to then promote it or play it, And now that the anniversary of Leveling the Land's come up, it's like, we got to do this now. I want to play the songs with Peace. Yeah. I think we'll do both. We'll definitely do a bit of both.
Oh, I'm gonna have to make sure I get tickets to see you guys because I couldn't.
Yeah, yeah.
I haven't been able to get anything for the Level in the Land's 30th anniversary. I've one of my friends, Zoe, she's managed. She got tickets, and when I told her I was speaking to you, she got very excited. Uh,
Well,
did Glastonbury, which I
mhm.
really want to talk about. So I wasn't able to go to Glastonbury, but I heard it all on Radio 1, and I recorded your set on a C90 cassette, like we all used
Oh,
to do.
right. Did it
I
did it
still
fit on
have.
one
I got it. No, I had to use both sides. I've still got it. I still got a copy of that
side? Cool.
because it was great.
Which
Yeah,
year was that?
Not
92 or 94?
94.
Right, yeah, that's
Yeah,
the headlining one. Yeah.
yeah, it was, and it was just amazing. And yeah, I listened to that a lot
Mhm.
because because it had everything on it that I was loving listening to. So it's just amazing. But what was that like? Headlining the main stage at Glastonbury.
Well, with that one, it was a bit surreal in my memory because 2 weeks leading up to it, I went down with pneumonia.
Oh
We were
wow.
touring, yeah, we were touring around Spain, and I wasn't very well, and did another gig, didn't feel very well. Did another gig, still wasn't feeling very well. So it definitely wasn't a hangover. And then finally got Barcelona, I think it was, and called the doctor and said he's not doing any gigs. He's got pneumonia. I'm like, oh shit. So I was flown home straight away, and the record company were absolutely petrified too. And so they sent me into this very flash hotel. I call it a hotel. It was a hospital, but it was more of a hotel. I mean, there was an antibiotic drip in my arm, and then some knock on the door and said, "Would you like some wine, sir?" I'm on antibiotic. So it was a bizarre experience. I wouldn't say private is the way forward at all. But the record company were massively petrified that I wasn't going to be well enough. So I managed to, I think it was actually a week before, so hence why I was in this hospital. And so my memory of that particular show is a bit of a blur, to be honest. I mean, we've been playing a lot of gigs, but most of the time I remember of that particular Glastonbury was keeping an eye out where was the nearest toilet, because I was, antibiotics was just ripped right through me, It was utterly horrific experience, to be honest. So it was a bit of a blur, that one. I was surprised when I heard a recording of it. It was like, oh, that sounds all right.
Yeah,
But
really.
my memory said, God, you were not, and it was live on TV. It was kind of, yeah, I don't have great memories of that one particularly, but the 92, when we played about 8 o'clock in the evening, that's the one I really, really, really did enjoy. I remember that. And I particularly remember we were playing One Way, and everyone was dancing. They were all jumping up and down, all in time to the music they were hearing. But what we were seeing was this wave of everyone jumping. You know what I mean? That kind of, you can see the sound wave going.
Oh, so
wow.
cool.
It was brilliant. That and the whole, then there's just dust just rising above the audience. It was quite a sight to see, I have to say. But
yeah, brilliant.
Real fond memories of that particular year, 92. And I think it was that thing, going back to what we were saying earlier, when it suddenly hit us that we were really big. It was when before we went on stage, I was like wandering around, the festival site. Because I've been to Glastonbury many, many times as a punter. That has always been my big, like, oh, one day I'm going to get to that, big stage.
Yeah.
And so, obviously really chuffed to bits for that. But what really blew all of our minds was like how many Levelers t-shirts we saw. It was like everywhere. It's like kind of like a dream, when you suddenly wake up. Like, I mean, you couldn't count them. It was just every other person was wearing one.
Yeah.
So I think that's when we realised, I think we've done it, boys.
Yeah. Is that? I think
there's a mixture of feelings. When I look back at it, it's a very mixed feeling. It's like, wow, we've done it, and now what? Is it going to change us, or it was very, very hard to say.
Was it difficult following up Leveling the Land? Did there was
Yes,
there?
it was.
Yeah.
It was. Because I mean we did that in '92. We did that show in Glastonbury, and we were literally whisked away. And the next thing we knew, we did this really long tour of America, and it was like starting all over again. Real sort of pubs, clubs sort of vibe. I'd like to say I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the idea that we went to the States, but I hated the experience there. And it was because the country's just too big, and I think it really sapped our sort of enthusiasm for a little while because the Americans didn't get it. I mean, America, when I look at it now, it's like it's such a variation. You go from one state to the other. It might just be like a county as far as we're concerned, but it is actually different countries, different mindsets. So looking back, there's pockets of places where we'll do all right, and other places like forget it. We don't fly the Confederate flag. You know what I mean? It's like it was a horrible experience. So it was kind of weird. And so going back to the third album, the difficult third album, the reason why it was so difficult for us because we were constantly either on a tour bus or backstage or on stage. It was, I think it was a particularly tough time.
Yeah.
That was the first time I can, when I look back now. I think because the record companies were going, right, they jump on it. And then the American, I think it was Elektra Records, were jumping on it. They want to break us in America. But I think it nearly broke us, basically, being on that tour bus.
Yeah, I can. Well, that's the thing, though, isn't it? It's that then the money machine of the that's behind everything else.
Yeah,
almost clouds the focus of what the journey is supposed to be about, because they start to get greedy, and they want it quicker, sooner, faster, more. And I think,
or there's this kind of myth which I completely disagree. This is the window. You've got to get in. Got to be within this window. And it's like, well, we don't care. And that's what we did. And I think that's why we're still around today. It's like we don't really give a damn. We just enjoy doing our music, making our music, writing our songs, and performing on stage, but not having to be pushed and pushed. And also, the most important part, because with John, the violin player, he was the first amongst us to have a family. And, if you've got a family, that's your priority. Yeah. It's very, very difficult to have that sort of work-life balance as musicians. It really, really is. Yeah. And so we decided to take control more ourselves, rather than letting the money guys say, you got to do this, you got to do that. Like, no. So, we became, we upset quite a few people in the past, but we don't care. We're still here.
But I think if you're in control of your own destiny, if you were, actually I think there's a lot more, I can't think of the right phrasing for it, but there's, I think there's more worth in that, and you've got that respect for everyone that's involved with it. I think there's definitely you have to have that. If we take, I'm not going to liken you to Iron Maiden by any stretch of the imagination, but you take them back in the 80s, they were album tour, album tour, album tour. They literally didn't. Yeah. It was constant, just a constant machine. Yes. And they never got a break. It was never any time off. I've read interviews with Steve Harris and seen things with Nico McBrain and all of those things, and there was never a break. Whereas actually, to allow your creativity to flow in the way that it needs to flow to get the best out of everyone who's bringing something to the table, whether it be the groove that you bring, whether it be what the lyrics that Mark brings, whatever, whichever way you want to look at it.
We found we had nothing to write about. If we were stuck on the tour bus all the time, so what are we going to write about? Who's going to relate to our lifestyle? Only other musicians. You know what I mean? It's kind of like we never wanted to come across as pompous pop stars. I mean, you can hear it on some other artists that that's what they think about. Well, if you make it interesting, great, you get away with it. But not with us. We're much more sort of people sort of band. We need to relate to them. And it was very, very difficult. So that third album, couldn't even get a title for it. We couldn't even just agree to a title. So in the end, we just called it Levelers.
But what an amazing album! Like I said to you earlier on, it's my favourite album. I love it. And I just think it's exceptional. When you use songs like Julie, Broken Circles, they're just for me, they take me back to a very special time. They are
Right. Okay. That's brilliant.
They are. They're brilliant.
It was hard work. I remember it being very, very hard work. And actually, I remember we did a lot of that at Box Studio, which is Peter Gable's studio. The Real World. And we got a phone call saying, "Can you play main stage Glastonbury?" So this must have been '93. We were like, yeah. But Marcus Jaws, who's our producer at the time, said, "No, you're not. You need to write 2 more songs." Oh. Well, just as well we didn't do that because we wouldn't have headlined the following year. So
no, and that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah. But no, for me, one of the things I really like about that third album, it's quite guitar-y in places. When you take songs like Belarus and Warning, and it's got that really nice. There's some really, really crunchy guitars in that really, and it really grooves out. I mean, and I think your drums really sing out in that. I love it for that. It just sounds so cool. And it, I think that's what I love about it. Isn't it's the energy that's in it.
The energy is key to the Levelers set. I mean, we can calm it down, and we go into our sort of softer side. Like songs like Julie, as you mentioned. We always have a song, at least one song in the set where there's no drums, and the idea is to sort of bring it down and then build it back up again to full on. So energy is key, and so as a drummer, I've got to be the one that's got to make sure that we deliver. And if I'm tired or hungover or anything like that, it doesn't work. Just doesn't work. So
fair enough.
I mean, in the old days, it was not a problem, but as the older we get, it's like no.
The bounce back's not so quick.
No, exactly. So it's very sobering thing, but it's great though, because the energy there and the enthusiasm is still very, very much there. And it's almost like, we've got a gig coming up this weekend, and I mean, when we get closer to it, I'll still get the nerves. I'll still get nervous about it because I care. I really care about it.
Maybe I think the caring part is that bit, isn't it? It's and I suppose because you want to do a good job.
Absolutely.
And I think that's always there. You're always willing that everything's going to go how you want it to go. And I think
I'm not someone who I mean, sometimes a mistake happens, and I kind of like that as well. When it's a real sort of big mistake, oops, that could be a sort of just part of the show, because it's a live show after all, And it's not like, well, I don't like it when the machines break down. If anything, like mechanical breaks down, that's kind of annoying, But sometimes a broken string, in the middle of the song, could be a really good thing. It can be, you just turn it around, right? You have to adapt, and like this whole thing's a bit out of tune, but if you know what I mean, it's just adapt to it, and it's good fun. All the classic cock-ups, you do on stage, and you turn it around, and hopefully no one will notice that.
Well, it's like when you break a stick, isn't it? Or something like that, and it's like, you're trying to grab a stick as quick as you can to try and keep everything going. And
the stick recovery, you get some good ones. And the worst ones when they ping in the air, you think, I catch it, no, I didn't quite catch it, and it lands between your foot and the bass drum stick, and the bass drum doesn't actually, the pedal doesn't hit because the stick's in the way.
It's all caught. It's all caught. But that is all part of it, and I think when you laugh about stuff like that, then that keeps it real, doesn't it? That's what
the audience like that. They love that.
They do like that, and I think that's really important. So just what I know you just mentioned, "Carry Me" and that. Have you got is there a favourite song out of the Levelers catalogue that you love playing the most?
It changes. I mean, I think at the moment, our current set list we're doing, I'll take it. Hope Street is one of my favourite. I just love the song, what it was all about, and I love
It's
the
got a
groove
great
of that.
vibe, isn't it? It's great vibe.
Yeah, it really has. And it's a funny one because it's got a sort of 6/8 weirdness coming in, and and just it's the one that I'm the one that constantly pulling back rather than pushing,
Yeah.
because my singer and my bass player tend to push, and it's kind of interesting, and I'm pull back, and see how far I can pull back. So the bass drum will be on time, the hi hat will be on time, but the snare might be a bit late.
So I'm going to give you an anger point, but I'm not giving you everything.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever.
Oh no, it's
So
great.
yeah,
That
lots.
is.
I mean, there's a song we played recently, "Together All the Way." Lyrically, that kind of story of my life in lots of ways. Um, yeah, it's something that changes. I kind of don't really like that question. What's your all-time favorite? I haven't got an all-time favorite because it keeps evolving and changing.
Yeah, and
But
I
you mentioned
understand that.
Circles. We've been playing that recently. God, I love playing that one. Absolutely love. Forgotten how much I love this one.
Such a
But we'd have,
tune. Such a
yeah,
tune.
yeah.
But because obviously there are certain songs which are obviously standard in the set. Like 15
Yes.
Years and Boatman and
I've not always played. One Way is a common one. They say Carry Me. River Flow tends to be up there now. Yeah. I mean, there are songs that we have to really play, or Beautiful Days. We have to play. We tried dropping One Way once, and it just didn't really work because people were going, "What happened to that song?" But we'll never satisfy all the Levelers fans at every gig. But that's
No.
why we rotate. We rotate our hits. You play
Yeah,
always
no,
play.
that's good. I think that's a really interesting thing. It's because when I would imagine, I don't know this because I've never been in this situation, but when you've had such a plethora of songs that people know and like to sing along to and all of those sorts of things,
Yeah.
and you think, well, we got to keep them in because it's always imagining if it's the first time you'd ever seen you play, what songs would you want that person to hear? I think that's because it's
a tricky one. I mean, I think it's in some ways the set list kind of writes itself to a degree, but there's got to be at least 3 key songs, I would say, that we've always played. That's in the set. The rest, well, I mean, we try to pull out songs, and it is difficult. It's something that I stay out of, really. Other than
you have nothing to do with that.
That's like, other than that, they're all a bit slow, but other than that, yeah. I mean, but we have got the large catalogue, and we still get criticism, obviously. So well, Living the Land's a good album, but you have played lots of other songs. You've done really good songs you don't hear anymore. Oh, right. One of the challenges I would love to do is to do Hello Pig, which is our kind of experimental album. I'd love to do that live.
Yeah, because that was because obviously that was after like Mouth to Mouth and everything, wasn't it? And it was kind of not things didn't necessarily drop off vocally from how people were viewing the band, but there wasn't quite so much attention to the band. Would that be a fair way of saying that?
We got to the end of our contract. I mean, we had the contract with China Records, as mentioned before, and China Records then sold to Warner Brothers, and so Warner Brothers took over, and it was literally one more album to go on that contract. So we honoured it, and we did an album that we wanted to make rather than what the record company wanted us to make. So it was a way of getting dropped, really. We were quite happy with that at the time. I think at that time also we were kind of exhausted with the whole thing. I think it was years after the sort of the initial Living the Land thing, and it was kind of, I don't think we all had a good look at ourselves. I think around that time, it's kind of, I've got sort of a very checkered memory of that period of my life, I'd say. So yeah, I think bit by bit we all kind of fell apart bit by bit. But years later, we pulled it around. So,
Yeah, and I think that's it, and obviously the new album is a complete testament to that. The Peace album's just
yeah,
phenomenal.
thank you.
I remember when Food for Family came out, and I had a notification come through on Apple Music, and I was like, "Oh, a new album! That's so cool!" And I couldn't wait. And I said to my wife, Kirsty, I said, "You're not gonna believe this. Levelers have got a new song out." And she's like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah," and it's like old school. I said to her, "It's just got that vibe about it." And she went, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah, you'll love it." And it was just exciting,
Yeah,
And
well,
I think,
I think you're right there. Yeah.
and the art, it
Yeah,
was the
it
artwork
was
as well.
that vibe, I guess. It was about getting that vibe. I remember when we were writing. I mean, it was on and off for a sort of 2-year period, I guess. But every time we got together, we did like a sort of writing session, or Mark or Jeremy or someone will have a song, and we'll work and bash out. We'll have about 3 songs to bash out over a period of say 2 days. And my angle was always about get the energy up, get the energy up. And I remember listening back to some of our demos and going, yeah, the drummer is definitely trying to put the energy in there, but this song is not about that. Let's get an acoustic song. Oh, yeah. But that was certainly my angle was the drum side. Up the tempo a little bit, see how far we can push this, and and some of the song went in. There's one particular song on the Peace album which we didn't struggle, but we went through a kind of, we explored. It's one. Four Boys Lost, which is a true story. And it was coming across as very, very folky. It was kind of like, I can't really hear the drumming on this, And then we sort of mucked around with the idea. And all of a sudden, me and Jeremy, I think, was like, let's just lay down a kind of bottom style groove, lay it down, very simple, not like bottom, because no one.
Yeah.
Not bottom. But, given that kind of, hard on the hi-hat. And then suddenly the song just suddenly fell into place. And it's like, and it became from my least favourite track to one of my favourite tracks,
Oh, brilliant.
Just getting that groove nice and settled in there. Love that one.
Just sits in the pocket. It's got that energy.
Absolutely.
It has got that energy to it. And I think it's great. While we're talking about Bonham, just very briefly, have you influences wise, Charlie? What have you, have there been any drummers that you've gone, oh man, I love what that guy does. I'd love to have just a snippet of that.
Bonham is up there in terms of what I put him in place in the God section because I've only recently found out what it is that he does. It's like, for example, was like, oh my God, it's all on the foot. Oh my God, and I miss me at home going, it's going to take a while to get to bottom speed, but but I love picking to pieces of what Bonham does, and Jason Bonham, his son, is
he's a monster, isn't he?
Yeah, it's incredible. I can see why the band, when they do get together, have him as the drummer, not Dave Grohl. Dave Grohl obviously was a great innovator of the sort of modern rock drum. Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers, I love him. I like his laid back groove style, the way he's always late, very full of energy.
He is for me. He is like my man. He's you're saying about the godlike section. That's where he is. And he is. He just has been ever since I started playing the drums, which is back in the 1990 or 91, something like that. So when Blood Sugar came out, when Leveling the Land, when it was that time, and I
wanted to be Chad Smith in the Levelers. You know what
I mean? and why not?
Well, I remember we did that. We'd done a few festivals. We crossed paths with the Chili Peppers, and Chad Smith came and actually watched us on stage.
Wow!
I was like, oh God! And
that's so cool.
We did that song. I think it was Julie. So I came off the stage, and there he was standing there, and said, "All right, what are you doing here?" So I'm having a fag break. See if you get it. So we've got a cigarette out from it. Oh, nice. So he's obviously got
awesome. That's
so and he just said to me, "You got this crowd really going. You just need to relax." Oh, okay. So I took his advice, and I always keep reminding myself, just be like Chad Smith, just chill out.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see on my back wall. I've got a picture.
Kick.
Yeah, and next to that, there's a drawing of Chad Smith that my daughter did for me.
Really? I can't see because there's a reflection on it, but yeah.
Yeah, and
right. So it's a godlike sort of status for you then, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, the guy he's a really huge fella. The way he gets around the kit, he looks like he needs a bigger drum kit. Do you know what I mean? His knees are sticking out by the snare drum. It's like,
he does keep it quite tight, doesn't he? And close together.
Yeah. But I just love watching him. Watching him from behind stage was a joy. I watched the whole set, just him. And it's just, as I say, he's got time to just flick, tiny little cymbal. It's like you can see that was his little toy. He didn't need to hit it, but because he's so on it, he just flick there, flick there. He was having a real laugh with his drum tech. Fucking hell.
He's so chilled in the way he plays, I think. There's nothing edgy about him at all. Everything is
that's right.
It's loosey goosey, but so tight with it. It's just incredible.
Yeah. Well, I think certainly with Flea being on the bass, he's one kind of on it. He seems to be on the beat, whereas Chad Smith can pull back behind him a bit.
Yeah,
which is the opposite scenario for me. I've got my bass player really ahead of me.
And you've got to rein him back in.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes particularly when we first start touring, we do the rehearsals, all good, get on stage, and the singer and the bass player just get very excited very quickly. And I feel like I'm like the guy who's sitting on a stagecoach holding back two horses, just bring them back, pull them back.
It is that analogy. It must
slow that down a little bit.
It must feel like that on 15 Years with the way that starts, because obviously that's just straight off, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm starting that one. That's fine. But I have to wait for someone else to start. I'm like, oh shit, that's really fast. But it's usually because it's adrenaline, and as I say, after about 2 or 3 shows, that's when we all start to just relax a bit. No compromise on the energy. None whatsoever.
It is brilliant, Charlie. It is, and like I said, it's something. There's something amazing about you guys. There really is, and I just genuinely love it. From a kit setup, because I've always, whenever I've seen you play, you don't tend to have a particularly big kit in. Don't have a lot. It tends to be quite stripped back.
No, I'm pretty, because the majority of the time it is kick, snare, hi-hat or ride. That's the majority. The fills are...
That's all right. We're all there. It's all good.
Now we're going to have a look at my ceiling for a minute. Hang on. There we are. No. There we go. Funny enough, Chad Smith is one of the inspirations of the current setup I have. So the fills are not that important certainly for the levelers, because there's a lot going on. You've got a violin playing, you've got 2 sets of guitars or a mandolin guitar on the bass, and keyboards as well. And also, I'm not that kind of a flash drummer. I'm more your sort of Charlie Watts, bless him, and your sort of just there in the band to hold it back and be a part of that of the beat. So what I tend to do is, I really got into having the 2 floor toms. Again, I don't use it an awful lot, but when it's there, it's more the effect of the bottom end drums. With a song like Battle of the Beanfield.
That's what jumped in straight into my head. It was that with a dum dum at the beginning of Beanfield. I mean, that's got
2 floors and a kick, at the same time. So there's a lot of movement on the PA. So that's the idea, really. But I tend to go to the lower end. I don't use the rack tom that much. I used to have the sort of 2 racks and a floor. I decided just 1 rack and 1 floor, then the 2 floor. That's really, as I say, the majority of it is about the beat and the feels. I do love drummers who can literally just get away with hi-hat, snare, and kick drum, maybe 1 cymbal. And that lends to a lot of creative feels and yeah, just I'm more impressed with that.
Yeah, and I think less is more, isn't it?
Does not impress me at all. Sorry to butt in.
No,
Is
sorry.
when you see the drummers with like, which must take what 2 hours to set up. You know, and it drums everywhere. You know, it's like, what's the point? Has he got an issue? Has he got, or is the shit that he has to fill it in with all these little tom toms? You know, do you know what I mean? And I question when I see a drummer with a massive. It's like seeing someone, a middle-aged man with a sports car. So,
I think you're right. I mean, the only drummer I know who does genuinely use every part of his kit pretty much in every song, and it is ridiculous, is Nico.
yes,
He's the only one I can think of. When you think of everything that Iron Maiden's doing with it, he's constantly using his toms.
Oh yeah. I was listening to something. I think it was by Black Sabbath. It's an old track. I can't remember which one it is. I'm not a massive fan of that. And I was like, God, this drummer's just doing a fill all the way through the song. I was like, so did anyone tell him to shut up? Just play the beat. So it's kind of like, I suppose it's part of the music. It works, but I would never have taken on that as an approach. Unless they needed it to be. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, I'm a massive believer like yourself. It's all about the groove. The groove is what holds everything together.
Yeah.
That is it. That's the soul of the song, you know. And I think everything is bolted around that. So when you're playing, whether it be ridiculously fast or ridiculously slow, whether it's on hats or whether it's on the ride or whatever, actually, it's what that feel does for the song, and that's why it works. You know. And then it gives you the little opportunities to maybe stick in a 16th note on the bass drum, for example. That so you get, and that's when it starts to sound a bit different.
Yeah, if there's room, but it's. I think that, my thing's always been. I've always listened while I'm playing, and it's really important skill because it's about what is everyone else is doing. You know, if it's a lot going on, then just don't do anything. I think drummers' chance to sing is when you get that kind of stop on the, there's a gap in the song, then come back in. Maybe that's the time for the drummer to throw in your flash bits and so on. But other than that, shut the fuck up, get back to the beat, get back to the groove.
And I think you're it's right though.
Groove can be like, you listen to some funk. I mean, it's amazing hi-hat stuff going on, even reggae. Some of the drummers that do that, I mean, they do amazingly intricate stuff, but they're not doing it to be flash. They're doing it because the guitar is doing this and the keyboards are doing that. You know, it's like, oh yeah, it's tying it together.
And it's that, and it's playing on an upbeat or the downbeat or whatever to make it give it some. And it's the personality of the song. And I think you are absolutely bang on with that. I couldn't agree with you more. You know, and Stuart Copeland's a prime example of that, isn't he?
I was going to mention him. Yes, he's great. I mean, he's very busy, but then you've got a three-piece band. That's why I'm a real fan of three-piece band, because it gives room for the drummer to be like Stuart Copeland, who like does amazing stuff on hi-hats. Even Walking on the Moon is a great example of that.
Fantastic!
It's a feel all on the hi-hat. It's closed, and a little bit of slices here, and that's what makes it so interesting. And you don't really know when he's going to put that snare back in. No, because he puts it in a different place. And he's a great drummer. He's a very technical and yet very musical, which is the important thing. Very, very important.
I think you're right. I think that having some musicality in you is as a drummer is a really important thing. You know,
very important.
Because then you get a bit more of an understanding about everything else that's going on, and you don't play selfishly then either. There are drummers that do play selfishly, and they make it all about them, and it's not. It's, it's about playing together. It's all about that whole thing.
You ever seen that thing? The drummer is in the wrong band.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like, No, you shouldn't be doing that. You know, you should be in a metal band, not in a folky kind of,
Yeah,
you know.
and that's it.
Yeah, it's too hard, you know. Yeah, there is a lot of. I have seen that. You know, it's quite annoying, really. It's like, you know, the guy is behind the drum kit. It's just like you say, all about him. It ain't, because I can't remember who said this. It was someone who died a few years back, a drummer from Detroit, and he said basically the drums it's not a musical instrument on its own. It's just a series of you know, patterns. But what it is when it becomes musical, when it supports other instruments. And I kind of like took that on board. I thought, yeah, he's right. You know, I mean, on its own, you can make it. I mean, how many records have you got that's just drums? You know, not many. You know, I mean, I can't even pick one, but you know, it's
only a Cozy Pal, Dance with the Devil, probably. That's mainly drumming, but
yeah, or Sandy Nelson, Let There Be Drums.
Yeah,
so that's got a massive guitar riff in it. You know? So they don't count, does it?
Yeah, or even Wipeout has still got loads of guitar and stuff in it. The drums do a lot, but it's not the whole part of the song, is it? So
we did a show a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember the name of the band now. It was a Belgian band that been going for years, and it really was one of those drum kits, like I say, midlife crisis drum kit. You know, all over them. And this guy, it was a metal band, and a metal band with no songs and not even any guitar riff. It was all about the drums. And he was impressive. I mean, like amazing double pedal stuff. But I was bored after about a minute and a half. It was like, oh, okay. And he just kept doing it all night long. This is boring. And
because it just becomes a dirge, and it's a wall of the same thing.
The same thing, exactly. You know, it's all about light and shade, and you know, give it load when you need it, and pull back out. You know,
and space between everything. You know,
absolutely. That is the biggest lesson I think all musicians need to learn. I keep saying this. We keep saying this to ourselves as the levelers. It's like, yeah, remember the space. What? Don't do anything.
just let it ring out, or do what it needs to do, and then it's like the intro to Beanfield. You know, where you've got the way we were talking about just now with the dum dum, you know, as it dum dum, and then when that vocal comes in, my God, it's haunting. It's haunting, but you want that atmosphere. You want that because that's what the song's about.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you. That's a. Yeah, that wasn't very hard to put together. You know, it was a very simple idea. Well, just that. Yeah, all right. You know, and it worked. If it works, I'll just go along with it. You know. Yeah,
I think you have to have that. You know, there's you know, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. My old man used to say that to me all the time. You know, and he was right. You know, there's no point trying to put something where it shouldn't go.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And also, it's a weird one, but even some of the favourite songs I listen to of other artists, it's the fairly simple ideas. It's like, oh God, that's a really good idea. Like, how do you think of that? You know, it's often I mean, you think about it, there's only 8 notes to play with. You know, you can break it into 32s and so on, but you know, it's that genius of sewing through. I don't know what makes a song happen. And as I say, you can be very technical about all instruments, but it's all down to the song. It's the song idea that really counts.
No, you're right, and it's that hook that it has, and how you relate to it. All of those things are so key to a good. They are, you know, they're the heart and soul of a good song. Is all the components working together. It has to. It has to.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's it's just you just know when something feels right. You know, you just do.
Yeah, right. I just remembered another song we do is "Far From Home," and all it is a tambourine on a hi-hat and a bass drum. And sometimes I start that song, and you know, everyone who knows the Levelers will recognise that song. And it's sometimes it's my moment. It's like, and sometimes moment could go on a bit too long when Mark's guitar's not working. Oh shit! Oh no, I've got to keep doing this. Like, maybe no, not from this song.
But
Yeah.
it's like though, because obviously you have varied how you do one way as well. You know, sometimes there's the dig goes on for a bit longer, and there's other bits that go on. But I always like that because I think it just, at some point that guitar's going to come in with that little bit's going to come in, and it's that anticipation of where it's going to come in, and I love that. I genuinely love that. I think it's awesome.
I'm sometimes thinking that myself. When is it going to start?
when? Yeah. Hang on a minute. There's space and there's space.
Yeah. Yeah. Big empty hall.
So obviously in your time playing, Charlie, has there been any? I know obviously Glastonbury must have been a highlight, but has there been any other moments where you've gone, wow, this is just, I never expected this?
Well, I'd say it hits you from time to time. When we come off to a really good show, we just before the lockdown, we played in Llandudno, and I remember walking on stage going, "Oh my god!" Because it's a really big venue that we're playing. I can't remember the actual name of the venue, but it's the one on the seafront, and it was huge. And went on stage going, "Oh my god, this is really big." Sat down on the kit, started playing, going, "Oh my god, I love this." And we had a really good gig. Again, I think we've done a few shows and we're really nicely, lubricated in that kind of like everything, all the cogs are working just really, really well. So I look back. I've always remember someone told me once, many, many, many years ago, you're only as good as your last gig. And for me, just going into lockdown, that was the last gig we did. Well, it was the second to last. We did it on in Liverpool the next day. And I keep looking back at those two shows going, yeah, that was bloody good. So I've got fond memories of like playing at sort of Glasgow Barrowlands was one of the highlights of my career, just one of the shows, but I can't actually remember which tour. Brixton Academy again is another. So it's a tough one because I can't pinpoint. I think Glastonbury is easier to pinpoint. You know what I mean? Because it was because it was my favourite festival to go to as a kid, young adult, and then to be on the main stage was quite special. It really was quite special. Yeah. Yeah.
No,
I think on that much more.
No,
really.
I think it's cool. It's just interesting because I think other people, everyone I've spoken to, there's been little things that have meant more than other things, and I think that's quite something else. I mean, when I was talking to Darren Smith, he's plays drums with a band called Harem Scarum, who are Canadian, but he's now working with Jakey Lee, who used to play guitar for Ozzy, and in his band, and they got the opportunity to support. I think it was either Rush or no, it was Foreigner. They supported Foreigner.
Oh yeah.
At this venue that they always wanted to play in Canada. They'd never played there before, and the stage rotates round, so it's always moving. And he said they'd always wanted to do it, and they finally got the chance to play there. And he said it was just, wow, I've done it. I'm here. I've always wanted to do this, and now I've finally done it. And that it's those little bits that you.
I'll give you another little example of just that. We played a couple of years ago at the Minnock Theatre in Cornwall.
Yeah, I know exactly where that is. Yeah.
We did an acoustic.
Yeah. That's right.
Our tour part was part of that promotion, and that was particularly special as well. It was a lovely day being there. We were very lucky with the weather.
It's an amazing venue.
It is, and I think it was. Looking at the pictures of the fans who posted it onto various media outlets was the way the backdrop, what the audience was looking at, changed throughout the evening as the song was going down. It was just like, wow, that must have looked brilliant. It must be very special for them.
Yeah, it is such an incredible place. It's just unless you've been there. and experienced it, it's quite a magical thing because
Yeah.
the landscape and the light is just incredible down there, and
Yeah.
the way
So
and it's just,
those sort of little things. I mean, I think it's really good that you're talking about the rotating the stage. I mean, apart from Madison Square Gardens, I've got not that many venues to go to.
yeah.
Obviously, all the big ones. We've never really made it into the sort of stadium size, but there are still venues out there we're still looking out for. I can't remember, but I love the little surprises. I mean, we did a gig in a cave once, and that was great fun. Yeah, that was really
it was.
The acoustic was difficult, but then we dealt with it. It was all right. Let's minimalise the set. Let's not over crank it. Just and that really worked very well.
Oh, nice. But I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's just brilliant how those challenges allow you. You've got to diversify a bit to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without a doubt, without everything literally bouncing off the walls, if you like. There's nothing worse than having a snare that's just going and hitting everything, and you're like, oh man, that sounds awful. Or a bass drum that's just taking over the room. It's like, oh man, I need to dial that back.
You probably relate to this, but the stages that I really, really hate is when sometimes you get like a sort of stage and there's a low roof and then it goes back out, goes out. It's got sometimes the old-fashioned ones, and so they put the drum kit in that low bit, and so I'm playing like cardboard boxes. I know it doesn't sound like that out there, but it's just so frustrating. The cymbals go. It's like dead. Absolutely dead.
Because there's nowhere for it to travel. That's the problem.
And the snare is so frustrating. You think, is that tune right? And you loosen off the snare a bit, and the soundman go, no, leave it alone.
Leave it, don't touch it. There used to be this little venue down in Cornwall that we used to play called Driftwood Spars. And
right.
And it was all the local bands used to play there. It was like one of those venues. You had you knew you were doing all right if you got to play at the Driftwood. And it would hold about 200.
Where's the Driftwood?
It's in a little village called St Agnes, which is where my first band was. But we were playing this gig there, and again, if you got the sound right, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
But if you didn't get it right, it sounded dog awful. It was one of those venues you couldn't rely on doing the sound yourself, if you like. You had to have someone engineering for you, otherwise you knew it wasn't going to go right. But and we did I think it was like a Christmas Eve thing or a New Year's. It was something we did down there, and effectively it was like someone's birthday party, and it rolled into something else. And I just remember us playing up in the back room, and it was just such a buzz. But we got the sound right that night, and that's what made it work, And I had a really crappy old drum kit at the time. It was like a Premier Club, Every gran and its dog had played it, It was nothing. But
the skin looking like that kind of thing.
It was just like, oh man, but it was all right. The new set of heads sorted that out. Without a doubt. But I love how you're relating to your stories. What that does for me is then makes me think about the experiences I've been through, and I think that's just fantastic for that. It's just brilliant.
You said earlier that you're not a fan of the in-ears. I use in-ears now all the time.
Okay.
I like it for two reasons. One is more control. What's going on? It's impossible to do the communication, which is a pain in the backside, unless you're good at lip reading, which I'm quite good at, but not everyone in my band can. It's a bit difficult. But there's 2/3 of us now wear in-ears. And the reason I like that is because it helps the drums sound decent. When you've got a wedge blaring away, particularly in a difficult venue, as we just described, the wedge is not helping because it's spilling onto your mics, And the other thing you can do when you've got a really dead room, you've got in-ears, just ask your monitor engineer, I'd say, to put some more splosh on it, meaning give it some sort of, some reverb or not echo, but reverb, just make that snare drum sound like it's, in a big hall. So just press the button, slide it up, nice one. So at least I'm kidding myself that this drum kit does sound awful because of the room, but it's the best I can do. But with a little bit of that going on in your ears, it kind of helps get you vibed up.
Yeah.
Or what my monitor engineer does is sometimes she just punks it up. Yeah, just punk it up. Just kind of give me a mix that gets me vibey. It's not going to be great, so just punk it. That often works.
Yeah,
so you get more control with the ears. That's what I
find. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. It's something I've got to embrace. But one of the things that's interesting actually since lockdown, because I had to change pretty much a lot of my teaching style because obviously being in here and then teaching online and doing everything through Skype or Zoom, whatever the outlet was, I had to make sure that the drums sounded good for the person who was on the other end. So I've been wearing cans now for the last 18 months because that's what I've got used to. Yeah. And I don't think I'd change that now because I like how my drums sound in here. And it's interesting what you're saying. So it'd be interesting to see what it's like from a live point of view. But I've got triggers built into my shells. So so now what I'm doing is running everything through that red rain. You can running everything from that into my desk, so stereo into the desk, and then and it's all balanced really beautifully, and it sounds nice. I can't wait to road test it with the band actually, because it'll be interesting to see, because my plan will be to straight into the PA. Right.
Well, that's what I can't remember the guy's name, but the ZZ Top.
Yeah, that's Frank Beard.
Yeah, that's what he does. He triggers all his. It's all sample. I was quite amazed. And also he had a bass drum like flat pointing upwards instead of pointing outwards, and so the pedal kind of did that kind of action. Very odd. Thinking, you don't get much power on that, and then I realised he wasn't having any power on that because it was all triggered.
Yeah. So he didn't need to have much in it.
No, we don't. So
but it's all. I think triggering's great, and it's certainly got a place, but it's not the be all and end all, and you can't beat the sound of a nicely tuned acoustic kit. There's a lot.
When the acoustic fits in a nice room, that's something else as well.
There's nothing quite like it, and you get it to sing, and that's just a thing of beauty, Really...
Absolutely. Well, that goes back to John Bonham and the Led Zeppelin, particularly with Physical Graffiti. I love the sound on that, and that's quite straightforward. It was, I think, that album. I'm not sure, but one of the albums they did it in some old house, or manor house. And it was the plaster that was reflecting. And so they put microphones at the top of the stairs that gave you that massive sort of ambient sound. Wow. But the drums that he was playing weren't particularly all that. It was the way he tuned it and the way he hit it, the way he played it.
And it's and you're right. It's how it's tuned, how it's played. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I think this is something that a lot of modern drummers don't necessarily know how to tune a kit properly. There's quite an art form being able to tune it properly and get it to sound.
It is. I'm sometimes my own worst enemy. The drum kit sounded okay, then I'll tweak it a bit, going, well, that's not quite right. I'm looking for whatever sound is in my head, and I overdo it and I get it wrong. It's like, I should have just left it as it was. So there is such thing as overcooking it. It's quite hard.
It is,
because you try to get the best of what your situation is, and that takes experience, obviously.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously in the studio, you're in complete control, so there is got to be the best you can get, and it's worth spending a day setting up. But very often when we do recording, it is that day is just not just down to the drums; it's everything. But you spend all day. You start with the drums, then you go on to guitars, then you come back to the drums, like, you hear it playing back. I can do this, I can do that. You'll separate the toms a bit more and so on, tuning. But it's a hard one because it's not something you can easily teach, is it?
No, it's not. You can't. And it's funny because I was talking to Bob Richards, who he's played with loads of people, but he essentially tunes his kit how Cozy Powell used to tune his, and he said
Yeah.
he bought this bootleg on vinyl of Down to Earth, and he just
Yeah.
loved how Cozy's kit sounded in the live recording. So he took his kit apart, took all the heads off, did all the bearing edges, put it all back together, and then tuned it to how it sounded on the record. And he said it took him a day to do it, but he said it was so worth it because he said the kit just sounded just sounded so good from afterwards. You know,
well, I'm
amazing.
very lucky because when I'm recording, I usually have my friend Toby, who's a drummer himself as well as a sound engineer, and it's really good when you've got two drummers dealing with it, you know. And I love working with Toby because he, you know, when I'm in a track, you know, concentrating and getting the take, he'll just pop over and go, I think you need to look at your snare. Oh, right, because I'm so concentrated playing, but he's listening for the snare. And you know how sometimes the snare gets a bit tired, or you know, the sweet spot moves.
Yeah,
then he'll go, move the sweet spot. Oh yeah, at least we get a pen and go, right, rather than retuning it, we'll just carry on with the moment. I don't want to stop the session. I want to carry on. So it's just a little circle, like hit it there, not over there, because it boings a bit. Do you know what I mean? You get the sweet spot. You know?
Yeah, and when you hit that sweet spot, it does sound nice. It's like a tennis racket, isn't it? There's a certain play. I always talk. It's that same
analogy, but that's so good. Yeah, when it pings.
Yeah, it's you just get that. You just know where it feels right, or I suppose it would be no different than how Beckham would have been when he got it right with his left foot. Do you know what I mean? And it felt, and it was. It's that.
He knew it was going in as the ball left his foot. He knew it was going in.
He knew it was there because it was on the money, and it hit that sweet spot of where it needed to be.
Exactly.
And it's that, and that is what. And when you get that, it sounds amazing because everything.
Yeah.
It's what we want because that's what we get off on, having it sounding just how we want it.
Yeah, that's why I did actually once many years ago use a similar drum kit. I hated it because that's all it was. It was the same sound, and I kind of went off that. So,
like I said, there's a place for it all. You know, I think there's definitely places for everything. Charlie, we could spend hours talking about stuff.
For an hour and a half, that's pretty good going, I think.
Yeah, we've done really well. It's been amazing this afternoon, and I thank you so much for giving up some of your time. It's been a privilege chatting to you. It really has.
Yeah.
I've loved every minute of it. So thank you.